verify and detect leak and all of those things, and so the amount of it will determine if they want to do business with your country if you're not meeting up with their standard. And it brings us to the part of accountability also from the regulators, from the oil companies themselves who are into this. If they're really accountable, if they're giving the right data in terms of the amount of leaks. I know the regulators should have them, but sometimes these things are not even made public for you to be able to measure, because you ask them in terms of performance. I know an FOI has been written to some, but no response just yet.
We've not gotten the response from the FOI, but there are that when you look at the FOI, there are things to actually get to comply them to do that. But the good thing with this
they caught at the end of the day.
There are equally a lot of independent people, assessors that are out there. Without you report on it, they know when you are flying. I mean, when you are contributing to that maintenance. So it's not only the companies that are doing that, but it's the good thing with some of these things that, because if you look at most of the companies that operate are actually multinational companies, so they have from their parent bodies, you're equally compelled to do that. So with time, I mean, with greater awareness, with greater advocacy, with greater transparency, the data will be out there. You can't run away from that.
All right, Abuja, feel free to join our conversation as we also look at how we can, press it on. I mean, there are different strata of what can be done from the people, the community, the oil company, the government regulator, the media. There are different levels of intervention to seeing how we can fast track things and ensure that we comply and meet our target of 2030 to have zero methane emission in Nigeria. Feel free to join the conversation on 0700 951 0000 or 0809 5974 869, or you can call us on WhatsApp or send a message or voice note not longer than a minute 30 seconds on WhatsApp. Our WhatsApp number is 0809 993 0137. I'm speaking with Paul Ugu and Kende Ogunyale. With me, Ogunyale?
Yes.
All right. With me in the studios, we look at methane gas emission in the country. So let's also interrogate communities. What should they do? That if they're not doing enough, because these community members, I can imagine that they have done, they form committee, they've interfaced, they would have even tried. People have died in the past for calling for the rights of, the people who stayed there. I mean,
I even think that it is criminal that these people, whenever there's a hike in petrol price, it gets to be highest in some of southern parts of the country. it's I can never understand.
It's not deliberate. It's not deliberately done. It's not their actual function today. There's a chain.
I'm aware. I'm aware.
I'm aware of that. I'm just saying that clearly there is not much intentionality. Yes, in terms of we know that these things, it affects farming, it affects water resources. But there's no the right amount of compensation that should go to the people at large. That this thing is happening in your backyard, and there's this compensation. You talked about the woman that is aged and she's a farmer, and now she doesn't make much from the farming.
So I think accountability. I don't always see accountability as just an isolated form where it's just the government that is to be accountable, right? I also feel like the community and business organization also have roles that they play in forming a formidable accountability system. So while we question the government, there is almost another hedge of the sword that points into to us to what are steps that we're doing, right? That's not to say that every community are not feeling the pain. I mean, the Bayelsa community that we talked about, their major source of water is rainfall and stream. Now imagine going to the stream and what was white yesterday
is now
black, right? Then you now have to feed on rainfall. You now wait for the rain, and what is falling down is colored, right? So it almost means that there's this contaminated water system that will almost affect your health back to back. So I think that in the game of accountability, if then there's this thing I always say anytime I have to speak about accountability, I always say that if in Nigeria, we have a lot of agencies that have been saddled with a lot of responsibilities. If every one of them were effectively carrying out their mandate, right? A lot of things that we do as advocates, as journalists, will not be told, right? Imagine if the regulator is penalizing this person for this community. Why would I even need to go and interview the woman? Because I know that in the next 1-2 weeks you're going to get some form of benefit for it. So what can be done is not form a stricter regulation. It is more of form an effective one, such that I always say how we form regulation should not be so opaque or vague in such form that even
can be so opaque that people can start to interpret it.
Someone living in a community can interpret it, right? And just walk up to the company and say, this is this, right? So I've worked in a lot of south region where we have talked about a lot of issues around deforestation, and you will discover that most people that are logging, in fact, that was what exposed my mindset around climate change. We were thinking at one point that it was just the government that was involved in the system of deforestation. At one point, we discovered that even the people were selling out their woods because they wanted to make
fast cash.
20,000 naira, and that wood was going to go for 1 million something in the market, but because they are not aware of it, right? So when we started the advocacy effort, as much as we wanted to try to crunch the political power that is fostering that crisis, we have to go and speak to the community. These things your youth are doing, it will not help you, right? So I think there's at one point we have to balance how we define accountability such that both the community and the perpetrators can also see their roles to play and do it in a form of synergy so that everyone can just benefit.
It's a matter to look at, because sometimes you're like, who should you emphasize more in terms of whatever campaign or advocacy you're on?
Right.
Are we looking at the regulators themselves who feels to be snoozing on this and not as proactive as we wanted? Or, like Mr. Paul mentioned, that some of the infrastructure these companies are dealing with them. 1 minute you think you have it on anything, something is leaking from nowhere.
You can't tell in Nigeria that stop exploring oil. Where will we see money?
No, we can't do that.
I want to say something. There's actually a global campaign in some, do not explore oil. There are people, there are communities, that global, but I say don't tamper with our natural resources. But adding to what he said about the campaign, I don't know if you are privy to the recent court case that happened in the UK, where it went back up to the Supreme Court to hold the companies accountable. And I know last week I attended a press conference by the traditional head of Bayelsa community, where he took a company to court. So there have been some awareness, some level of this from the communities that if we can't get it, let's try the justice area by taking companies to court to do that. But apart from that, like what I said, in as much as it has not been of success, there are a lot of government incentive to know if they can actually do that. But as I said, it's based on implementation. Have they been able to implement it? That issue of natural gas commercialization, reinjection of the gas, the production into something that you can use for other forms. So those are policies that the government have done to make sure, or to try to know, can they really be able to reduce especially the environmental effect of gas. And equally, the level of community awareness is growing. People are getting aware of what is causing it. How do we really dictate when it's happening? How do we report to make the regulatory agency?
Oh, people are knowing. I mean, it's a good one. If the people know and they know to report it immediately. Even if the companies want to turn a blind eye, people are like, no, this is happening, or address it.
I know some NGOs that are already creating some sort of community vanguard within the communities that they are now the one advocating for it. So they know these guys have formal knowledge or formal information, right? They now begin to use that as some sort of advocacy. Okay, before you come to our land to explore, these are the documents. You must do this environmental assessment, you must do this, you must provide this, you must provide this, and they make sure that all those boxes are ticked before you can even start drilling any oil, right? But the challenge over time is that some of those oil companies have started drilling for a very long time, even before anybody